Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and today we're going to continue trying to answer the question, how much of a grind is Star Citizen? So this is part 2 of a little series, so if you haven't checked the first video out, just go back and take a look at it. But the basic idea as a recap is we try to start with a starter package, so I selected a Mustang, and I'm trying to put together a small solo fleet, which would allow a new player to get into all the different areas the game has to offer. So in the last episode, we went from the Mustang to buying the Arrow, which is going to serve us as a combat ship. Then I'm going to try and buy a Prospector to do some mining, Freelancer Max to do a bit of trading, and then a Constellation Andromeda to give you some sort of ship to participate in some decent multi-crew with, like if you've got a few mates that you want to bring in to try out Star Citizen, then the Connies are a great stop for that sort of thing. So before we get going, just a quick one to say, if you like what I'm doing and if you think by the end of this video that it's worth it, then please just consider subscribing to the channel. There's also a link to our Discord in the video description down below. Even though I like to show how things can be done solo, I think Star Citizen's one of those games best experienced in a group. So if you want to come and say hi, we're a very light-hearted bunch, but we'll find you people to fly with, and we run regular events and stuff to help people out. Particularly, I'll probably release something else on this closer to the time, but looking ahead to Fleet Week and the Free Fly event, if you are sort of maybe just going to try Star Citizen out, then particularly feel free to drop in, because we'll probably have some sort of buddy system on the go where we can set you up with someone to help show you the ropes, basically, because there's quite a steep learning curve as you just get into this game, but once you've sort of mastered the basics, then it becomes a lot easier. So if you just want some help with that part, then we'll be here to provide it. And a final bit of jabber from me, just it does make it easier when you're starting out if you use a referral code. Like I said before, it doesn't have to be mine, but I'm just going to ping mine up on the screen just in case you do want to use my one. This just gives you a bit of extra starting cash, so that does really help you out in the very beginning. It's always useful to have a few extra credits in your pocket, and it helps me out too. So without further ado, we're going to crack on with the grind. So just like the last episode, one of the things I'm going to do is speed up the footage of myself doing it, but what I have got is a clock running in the bottom right hand corner so that you can see how long this is going to take, and I am going to show it warts and all, so the clock is going to keep running despite things like 30Ks, server crashes, and any other bugs which come up which might realistically slow your grind. I just think all of those things do compound to create sort of a realistic picture of how long it will take to get to a certain point in Star Citizen. And sort of it's better to show particularly new players a realistic picture, because there are instability issues, and they will provide you with some setbacks. So just worth knowing about them and going in with your eyes wide open. So we're starting off from Port Olisar, which is where we ended the last video. I'm going to grab out the Anvil Arrow that I purchased, and we're going to start bounty hunting, basically. So I've just opted for the first sort of certificate that you have to do. So you have to work your way up in bounty hunting through the different ranks of target to begin with. So obviously this is a new character, so I've got no reputation at all. So we have to start from the very bottom with very low risk targets. What I'm going to do while I do these is also to start with weave in some of the halt illegal surveillance missions. The bounty missions sort of populate gradually over time. So when you've only got access to the very low risk targets, which is the first wave, then there's not always one for you to do. So doing these additional sort of satellite missions can be a quick way to just grab an extra 20k while you're waiting for the next mission to pop. So don't be afraid to do that in the beginning, just to get some cash rolling in while you wait for those missions to spawn. Later on, when you've got more of the certificates and access to more of the mission types, then there'll be no need to do that. So one of the reasons I prefer to do this stage, particularly in the Crusader system, is that around Crusader, bounties only spawn at the moon Yella. Over in Hurston, which is the other place where bounties spawn, they can spawn at any one of the 4 moons, so you spend an awful lot of time quantum traveling between the different moons to go to the different bounty targets. Whereas in good old Crusader, it's just Yella you have to worry about. So I know some of you might have seen that there are planned changes for bounty hunting coming up in the 3.13.1 patch, which is the patch due to go live before Fleet Week. CIG have rode back on one of the proposed changes, which was that you would no longer have a quantum marker for the bounty target itself. So as you'll see from some of as you see me going to bounty missions, I'm traveling by quantum drive to the target location, and then I'm about 5-6 kilometers away from that target when it spawns. They had proposed that you wouldn't be able to quantum jump to them anymore at all, at which point you would have probably had to travel between sort of 200-300 kilometers. But they realised that maybe took quite a lot of the fun out of it. So I believe from the PTU that you're now spawning about 20 kilometers away, which, to be fair, is not that large a distance to travel. One of the things which is plaguing the 3.13 PU branch, the current live build that I'm doing this on, is long wait times for bounties to actually spawn once you get there. So assuming they manage to solve that, then I can't really see bounty hunting in the new build being any slower or quicker than bounty hunting in this current build. Even if there's a little bit more of a drive when you turn up, it shouldn't matter in terms of the time saved if the bounties start to actually spawn as you get there, or already be spawned by the time you get there. So if you want any sort of more detailed sort of narrative on how to bounty hunt, if you're just getting started, I'd encourage you to check out I've got a little series, Getting Started in Star Citizen, which provides much more of a guide. A lot more of the idea behind this particular series is just giving an idea on the amount of time it might take to grind out a decent amount of money to get yourself in that good starter position. But what I do here is I do focus on running as many of the missions as I can to try and get my reputation with the Bounty Hunters Guild up, to try and get to the next certificate as quickly as possible. We did some work which I covered in a video about how to get ERTs as fast as you can. We did some work to sort of work out what types of bounties are best in terms of progressing down the chain as quickly as possible. And what we found out there was that the normal single bounty targets are more effective than the groups at getting you reputation with the Bounty Hunters Guild. So I focused on doing them. So almost exactly 2 hours later, at 2 hours 38, my advanced tracker license has popped up. So this is the one which is going to let me do VHRTs. So that's the point where the money starts to really roll in when you're bounty hunting. So VHRTs will net you about 17,500 credits per mission for an individual bounty, and then if you start looking at the group bounties at that point, which involve taking down 3 targets, they'll pay out 61,250 credits. So that's the point where you start making really decent money bounty hunting. So what I'd say is it's worth basically going as quickly as you can up the reputation chain to get to the VHRTs at least, and then maybe branch out into doing groups at that point to start building up your reputation with North Rock. So, like, quick note on the reputation system. You've got 3 in this instance organizations or factions that you want to worry about building your reputation with. First one is the Bounty Hunters Guild, so they're going to issue you with the licenses, which allow you to take on different levels of target. Then Crusader Security issue all of the single target bounties, and North Rock Services Group issue all the group bounty missions. So you want to also try and get your reputation up with those 2, because as you ascend through the different levels, you get a pay bonus. So that goes 5%, 10%, 15%, and 20% at the max level. So that stacks on top of the sort of, let's just take the basic sort of VHRT mission at 17,500. Once I get to the first 5% pay bonus for Crusader Industries, they're going to start paying me an extra 875 credits. And once I get up to the full 20% bonuses, those missions are going to start paying me 21,000 per mission. So it's really by stacking the bonuses that you start to make the serious money in bounty hunting at the higher levels. So a little under 3 hours in, and I'm approaching the 500k mark again. So hope you can see this is quite a lot quicker than the rock mining that we did in the last episode. One thing that's just worth bearing in mind with bounty hunting, which is really good, I think, is that it's quite easy to just sort of stop and log out, log back in when you need to. So you know, sometimes you've just got time to just jump onto the game for a quick bit, run out, get in your ship and go and run a couple of bounty missions, and then it's time to cook dinner, or put the kids to bed, or whatever it is you need to go out and do in the real world. So bounty hunting is a great option for people who are just looking to do something quickly, grind out a bit of cash, put the game back down again. So I've included all the sort of, you know, trips back to Port Olisar and all that sort of stuff in the time. So it's an accurate reflection. Like, this was done over the course of, I think it took me about 4 or 5 days, but split across a number of play sessions, as bounty hunting is one of those things that's quite easy to just drop in and out of. So we hit another milestone at 4.5 hours in. So I've got the Master Tracker license available. So that's a big one because it lets you do ERTs, which is the highest level of bounty hunting targets, extreme risk targets. These missions will include a Hammerhead, which is the hardest one to take down. If we just take a quick look at the build that I'm using for the arrow. So with the fixed size 3s in all the slots, I've got 2 of the DR Model XJ3 repeaters. Those are distortion guns for ripping shields. And then I've got a Attrition 3, which is a laser repeater for actually damaging hulls. This build is, for one, sort of more than capable of doing the Hammerheads, the highest risk targets we've got. And it's also good in that it's, because we've got no ballistic weapons, they don't require reloading. It's all energy weapon based. So I don't need to ever worry about going back to base to reload. I only need to worry about sort of repairs, or to head back to base if I want to log out and quickly log back in without having to claim my ship. So one problem I did have in this was there was somebody else, a random stranger, basically at my target when I arrived at it. And I guess he was trying to be helpful. Maybe just wanted to shoot a Hammerhead. But the issue, particularly when there's 2 people shooting at a ship, is sometimes the pilot can die in the explosion. And then if the other person continues to shoot the ship, they get a crime stat. So unfortunately, I have to factor in a stint in Klesher Rehabilitation Facility into the time that it's taking me to do this grind. But this is just one of the bugs, and kind of is what it is, I guess. So back out in the real world, it's time to just start grinding the Hammerhead missions, really. Sort of a mix of the ERT group bounties, the VHRT groups, and the individual ERTs. So at this point, it's all about sort of building up those bonuses and just grinding away at these bounties. The group bounties at this point are the preferable ones because they're paying out higher ratios versus the single targets. So an ERT group, for instance, is paying out 87,000 credits as a base before the bonuses. A single ERT is 25,000. Also worth bearing in mind that the Hammerhead being sort of the hardest ship to kill. If you do 3 ERT individual bounties, then you will fight 3 Hammerheads. The target is always a Hammerhead. If you do the groups, then 1 out of those 3 will be a Hammerhead. The other 2 will be either a Vanguard Warden, a Hurricane, or a Valkyrie. So that just makes it a bit easier and therefore quicker. And that's what we're aiming for to try and get to the next stage. So when I left prison, at just over the sort of 5-hour mark, I was on 1.14 million credits. But hopefully we'll see with the rest of this video that sort of it's really, you start by laying the foundation of getting yourself up as quickly as possible into those VHRTs and ERTs. And then once you're there, making the money becomes a lot quicker. So from that point on, it's mostly about grinding those Hammerheads. They're a bit tricky to start with, but once you get the trick of it, it's they're pretty simple. It's sort of the dance of the Hammerhead is all about spinning round in a ship like the Arrow that's highly agile and maneuverable. So it's all about using that to your advantage and make sure that you focus one shield facing of the Hammerhead. So I like to target the head of it, which will keep me on the forward shield. So one of the dangers is if you spread your fire out too much across the different shield facings, that you'll give the ship time to regen its shields. So just try and make sure you're breaking one shield and then applying damage to the hull using your laser repeater. But really just sort of find a strat that works for you. Indeed, sort of the Arrow might not be your favourite ship. It's just the route I prefer if I was looking to start from scratch. So at the 10-hour mark, I'm up to 3.7 million in the bank. So hopefully that sort of shows how things accelerate once you've got that master tracker license in the bag. And from that point on, it's quite easy to rack up some serious cash by doing these bounties. Another little trick I found just to speed myself up was when you're jumping out away from the bounty target, to aim for the OM1 or OM2 point around yellow. These are sort of at the top and bottom of the planet. So you'll then have a view down on the rings where all of the bounties spawn, so you're guaranteed to be able to get straight to whichever one you're going for. So 11.5 hours, I hit my target. I got 4.5 million credits in the bank, and that's going to be enough to move on to our next stage. So before I leave Port Olisar to go and actually buy these ships, I'm just going to make sure that I pick up the 2 jump drives. So it's always worth checking Erkul before you leave for what your ship builds are going to be, and where you're going to buy those parts, so you can plan the most efficient route to go and buy them. So the first ship I'm looking to buy is the Prospector, which is a little solo miner. So that's going to set me back 2,061,000 credits. But I'm looking to upgrade the jump drive to an Atlas and buy a Lancet MH1 mining head for it. It's just worth bearing in mind that those are available at Port Olisar, so I don't want to leave Port Olisar to go to Hurston and then have to come back to Port Olisar to buy some parts. So just made sure I picked those up before I left. And then the other ship that I'm going to look at buying is the Freelancer Max, which is my cargo ship. And for that, I need to buy an XL1 jump drive as well. So that was also conveniently at Port Olisar. So just to make sure you pick up those parts if you're already at sort of a place which sells them, because it'll just save you time going back and forth. Just try and plan an efficient route. Quite a lot of time in the game is spent flying around looking for parts and stuff. So if you can save yourself a bit of time there, then that's useful. So don't forget to sort of add those to your basket on Urkel. That will show you where to buy these things. So I've just come to Hurston, Lawville to go to the ship shop. That's what we're going to be buying. One prospector. I told you I'd include all of the time wasting, so it includes this guy taking forever to buy a ship. He probably just wanted to have a look at what he was after. Now, also just to save time, so I flew here in my Arrow because it was the ship that I had. But the one that I'll do my next journey in is the Freelancer Max. So the Freelancer Max is a medium ship, which has let me put a much faster jump drive on it while still being able to make a long jump. So just keep in mind to make sure that every time you go travel somewhere, like if you've got to go across the universe to buy some parts or get to a different spot where you got to do something, just make sure to pick your most efficient ship to actually travel therein. Because if I'd jumped into my Atlas to make the next jump to Crew L1, where we're going to start the next stage, doing some mining and refining, if I chose to travel there in my my Atlas equipped Arrow, then this jump would have taken me sort of nearly twice as long. So it is sort of factors like this that can really help to shave a little bit of time off. And just time spent in QT, that sort of thing is really, if you just think about it a bit, you can save yourself quite a lot of time. So touchdown at Crew L1, one of the refinery stations, and there we have it. We've bought the next 2 ships in our series, and we'll call that sort of just under 12 hours. So 11 hours 59 minutes and 18 seconds. So that was our episode for today. I, for one, am quite glad after a nearly solid 12 hours of grinding bounties over the last few days. I, for one, am going to be glad to be going on to do a bit of mining over the next few days, so I can get the 3rd episode ready for you guys. And in that, we're going to be doing some Quantanium mining, refining, and then taking it to the TDDs to go and sell it to make our cash. I know sort of a lot of people will spend a lot of time going like, well, what is the most efficient grind that you can do? And there's a lot of debate over, is it bounty hunting? Is it mining? And to be honest, I think in the current build, I'd probably say bounty hunting is a bit quicker than mining, particularly in the Prospector. As we'll see in the next episode, it's a bit of a smaller mining ship and doesn't have a huge amount of cargo capacity. But one thing to just bear in mind, like while I am making a video how much of a grind is Star Citizen, one thing to bear in mind is that, enjoy the grind. So at the end of 12 hours of bounty hunting, I'm quite keen to do something else. And I think sort of like, you should get out there and try the stuff that the game has to offer, right? So I wouldn't get too sucked into day in, day out, just doing the same thing over and over again, unless that is what you love and you're happy with it. So thank you very much for watching all the way to the end. If you do think that this sort of content is useful, then please consider hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. And do get in touch. I try my best to read all of the comments and get back to anybody who leaves one. I've had some great chats with people in the comments section. Let me know sort of what you think I've done right or done wrong. Feel free to mock me for all the time I spent in prison while I was trying to put bad guys in it instead. And I hope to see you out there and see you in the next episode.